You ready to do this?
Yep.
Am I ready to do this?
I don't know.
What is this? This is the Thanksgiving episode? Did you just
Yes.
say no?
I
Did
said,
you mouth
I don't
no?
know. No.
All I saw was the no part.
No, it wasn't.
Am I ready to do this?
know.
And you're all, no, you're not. You're not ready. Welcome to the True North podcast, where two practicing light workers get together every week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing for body and mind so that you can live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Abby.
And you did not sip your tea drink while I was doing that this time, and it really threw me off. Oh,
sorry.
Your water. I got my water.
Water today. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
This is the Thanksgiving episode. I'm going to probably totally derail everything that you might have wanted to talk about today.
I wanted to give you the floor to talk about gratitude. That makes sense to me, right? That's a good topic for a Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah, so I was thinking, Thanksgiving. If you and I were sitting at a table, Thanksgiving dinner, what would we be talking about? And so I decided that's what I want to talk about today. If we were literally having Thanksgiving dinner today, this would be our topic of conversation.
Yes.
So first of all, I need to know what food requirements do you have for your Thanksgiving meal?
Oh my goodness. This is such a weird year to ask me that.
Wait, it's food. Why?
We've been talking about completely ditching our traditional Thanksgiving dinner and traditions because this has been a big year of awakening our own advocacy for a lot of reasons in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And I kind of grew up learning the whole Columbus story, and I recently learned that about the Pequot massacre, which is actually the thing that started the actual Thanksgiving holiday, where they chose that day to commemorate and celebrate the fact that they actually were able to steal the land from the Pequot people. And so we're kind of like, I don't really know what we're gonna do with it. I still want family and food and all that stuff to be involved, but it's really, really, really hard for me to walk into a Thanksgiving celebration without acknowledging where Thanksgiving came from. So to me, I was like, why don't we just figure out what type of food natives make and do that instead of turkey and stuffing and shit. But we don't know. So we're still working on it. That's my short answer to what food is required at the Thanksgiving table for me this year.
And that is the end of our episode. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're not celebrating
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. There's a lot of good stuff around Thanksgiving celebrations. I don't want to undermine creating occasion to lean into gratitude and all that stuff, but just that word is really loaded for me.
Yes, but is it a blind eye or just an uneducated eye?
I think for me it was blind because I kept getting word that as I got older, the more I would learn details about how the colonizers were complete assholes to the people who lived there first, but I never did the homework. I was like, oh yeah, we really sucked for taking their land, haha. But I didn't actually learn. I just kind of rode the wave of pseudo understanding and acknowledging that it was total shit move on our part to do what we did to even start this country, where we started it and how we started it and even why we started it. And so I was kind of willfully ignorant in my lazy awareness that it wasn't the story I was fed as a child. But I didn't ever go look to see what the actual story was.
So is not having Thanksgiving then your form of protest?
Well, it's not that we're not having Thanksgiving, it's that we're celebrating the day in a different way. It's kind of like how Indigenous Peoples Day, it falls on Columbus Day for a reason. We're not trying to take anything away from Columbus Day. It's just an alternative for people who don't want to celebrate a mass murderer.
You bring up a really important topic that I would like to discuss, although I don't think today is the day. And it's about the renaming of things, the taking down of statues, erasing our history kind of conversation.
I know you totally were not prepared for this to be where we went with our Thanksgiving episode. I didn't mean to derail anything, but that's my honest answer to the question.
No, but this is good because maybe this is going to open up people's eyes, but I also want to tell you from my perspective, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and not because I don't have an understanding of what's going on, but and this is why I think we should have this conversation in a different episode, where I don't want to not do something in the name of trying to erase or cover up something that did happen.
Right.
And then at the same time, there were very few things that happened for me. If we're just looking at my experience and my childhood, there were very few experiences in my childhood that were actually happy, where I did feel safe and I actually felt loved and I was given affection. And holidays happen to be one of those. We spend a lot of time with my grandparents, my aunt and uncle. And so for me, Thanksgiving has always been a time of love. Mm-hmm. So I struggle when I hear you say it, because then I feel like I'm taking away from what it means to me. Like it takes away from what it means to me, which is incredibly valuable time of year to like celebrate family and to be grateful, and it not have to be about gifts and consumerism. And I mean, for me, Thanksgiving even trumps Christmas. Right. But I also have, on the flip side, that understanding of how it started. And so I don't want to completely take away my experience and why I want to celebrate it either.
And I don't mean to take away anyone's experience of it. And that's why I hesitate to say I'm not doing Thanksgiving, because then like I feel like that is most likely to be received with an undertone of anyone who does is wrong. Or like,
sure.
like I don't want it to come off like I'm coming from this awakened state, and now that I'm in the know, I can't like I don't really like that attitude. I don't think it helps anybody. And there's a lot of good things that come out of Thanksgiving celebrations as they've evolved over the years that are complete or can be detached from the origins. Mm-hmm. It's not like when you gather around a table around food and family, you're celebrating the fact that people drove someone out of their land and murdered everybody. Like that's not what you are celebrating. And the occasion to celebrate those things was born out of that, but that doesn't mean that you're still tying yourself to those events. Mm-hmm. You know, like, because like my kid's 2.5, he doesn't know. He'll know that there's food, and he'll know mm-hmm. that everybody gathered around a table, or I don't even know if we're going to do that this year. But Like he'll remember the experience. He'll remember the family, the warmth, the love, the mm-hmm. connection, and for him, that's what it is. And he's not going to, as a 2.5-year-old, be like, where did all this come from? What am I really promoting here? Mm-hmm. And so if you're really living in the present, all those things are present Thanksgiving, and they're all valuable, and they're all worth saving and keeping. This is just my first year of coming to it with more full knowledge of the historical roots, and I'm trying to tease out what in the holiday I want to keep and what I want to discard. Not discard the whole holiday or say the whole thing is garbage or just turn my back on all of it. But it's kind of like Christmas. Like we're not doing Santa Claus with him, and we're not doing the Jesus thing with him. So it's just presents, like we're not saying, I'm not doing Christmas because I don't believe in the Jesus thing or the Santa thing. Mm-hmm. But it's still a tree and presents and Christmas lights and an inflatable snowman in our front yard, and all that stuff is fun. And it's still there. It's part of what we're all doing, and I want them to be able to participate in it, and I want to participate in it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'm not just, poo-pooing the whole thing. For me, I'm just bringing a new, and I think that's natural. Like when you learn something new about it, you have to look at all the elements through that lens and kind of do a whole new layer of scrutiny and pick things apart, and that's just what we're at. So like, I don't.
Yeah.
I think this year, since Thanksgiving is so food centric, I think a way to honor the people who, to this day, continue to be oppressed and displaced is to kind of like loop them into the experience.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, and because I feel like what Thanksgiving is today is not what it was.
Right.
And I don't know. I need to sit with that for a little bit and see what I think about it. But for me, Thanksgiving lines up with my values, and I guess that's why I like to celebrate it.
Yeah.
But I don't want in any way want it to make someone feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Homeschooler. I don't want anyone to feel as if I don't recognize them in some way. Like, I guess I would welcome anybody to my table, and maybe I don't make that known, but I would. Inclusive. Yeah.
And I do think there's something to be said for taking it and turning it into something that can be the beautiful thing that it is, devoid of where it came from. That's, I mean...
In a way, do you feel like if we did it the right way, it could actually honor the people that were massacred?
I mean, take this into a different arena, right? Let's say in some alternate universe, instead of the slaves being emancipated, the slave owners won. And they started a holiday that day to celebrate the fact that they were able to all keep their slaves, right? Mm-hmm. Then later on, more uprisings happened and another war was fought, and then they won their independence, right? But the people who descended from the slave owners continued to celebrate that day that celebrated the day that they got to continue to keep the slaves. Mm-hmm. And my question would be, how would the descendants of those slaves who were freed and are now free feel about the descendants of those slave owners still celebrating that holiday? What would it be like to celebrate that holiday and invite people of color to the table? How do you think they would feel being at that table at that holiday celebration, even if it had then evolved into something that is like 99% just food and family and love and warmth and gratitude? That's the question I'm asking myself. Food, family, love, warmth, gratitude, all good stuff.
But then you open the door to what else do we have to change by constantly living in the past? What other behaviors, what other things, ways of showing up do we need to adjust?
Well, I don't know that it's there are some very clear living in the past.
But to me, like, we are now many generations past that time. And what I'm hearing you say, so correct me if I'm wrong, is that a person that would show up at that table that's a descendant of one of those massacred people would still be offended, even.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm engaging with the question more than trying to extrapolate an answer. I don't know anybody who is descended from the Pequot tribe, or if there are any even left. And I would maybe I need to go further and find those people and do the work of asking them how they feel about people celebrating Thanksgiving, even the most innocent, pure-hearted version of the holiday. Because maybe they don't give a shit. But maybe they do. And if they do, why? And then it could be something as simple as just keeping the thanks part, but then choosing to make it a day about being grateful for the diversity. Being grateful for the fact that, I don't know, just thankful for the natives. Mm-hmm. Even just shift the gratitude from it being a day that comes from let's thank the Lord that we were able to kill all these people and take their land, to let's thank the people. Mm-hmm. So I mean, then it would be this. It'd be, for all intents and purposes, the same holiday, but it would include the people that suffered because of it.
And you don't think that there are people that celebrate that way now?
Oh, maybe there are. I'm just becoming one of them as well.
So I'm about to record a gratitude meditation that I'm going to share with everybody. And in it, we're going through different levels of feeling gratitude for other people. And one of them happens to be for all the people from our past that we don't know, may never know, that have impacted us and changed our life in some significant way. And I mean, that's kind of what you're saying, going back to the natives people that got us to where we are today, whatever that looks like. Not necessarily in a good or bad way, but just recognizing them as having a place in our history that impacts how I can live my life today.
I feel like I totally took the wind out of your sails. Like you're all ready to be like, let's do the gratitude episode. And then I was all, argh! That's me. That's my sound effect of like pulling the brakes.
It's a bit frustrating in a way, I'll be honest, because I'm really struggling not to get irritated that you're taking away my family day.
But I'm not taking anything away from you.
No, but all of a sudden I'm having feelings of guilt, like I should have been recognizing indigenous people this whole time.
That's really tricky for me because I don't want to say where I'm coming from as a way of prescribing what anybody else should do. Mm-hmm. That's all too often how people tend to present and how people tend to receive that type of thing. And me changing the way I do Thanksgiving does not have anything to do with how anybody else does Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Period. What I'm doing is I'm sharing my own experience, my relationship to the holiday, my feelings towards it, and the things that I'm wrestling with right now as someone who has really ramped up the advocacy for oppressed people over the last year. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that anybody else, that I think anybody else should or shouldn't do it or is wrong for not doing it. I mean, I could be judging myself for living the last 34 years not having done this too. The information was always there. Mm-hmm. And I don't want this to come off as a judgment or to make anybody feel the need to defend them doing Thanksgiving the way that they want to do it. Because that's not my intention. Mm-hmm. That's not where I'm going with it. Now, if anybody in our audience does feel defensive because now all of a sudden they feel like they need to defend their way of doing Thanksgiving, then I encourage you to do that work. But not to satisfy some podcaster's weirdly implicit desire for other people to do it the way he's doing it. I'm not there. Mm-hmm. That's not how I want to come off. Mm-hmm. And if somebody else invites me to a Thanksgiving dinner and we can do it safely, then, I'm not going to be like, well, are you acknowledging the indigenous people who died to make this event happen? Like, it's food. At the end of the day, here, presently, in the now, it's food, and it's family, and it's love, and it's going on the table, talking about what you're thankful for. And there's nothing wrong with any of that.
Well, I'm feeling defensive, so that's definitely my red flag that I need to go do some work. But I am going to shift gears, and I am going to ask you what you're grateful for.
Wow. You know what? I'm grateful that you are still being a safe person for me right now. There are so many other directions that this could have gone. I had an inkling that if this conversation went that direction, it was going to be triggering for you and for a lot of people. And I also feel like it's worth bringing up, mm-hmm. just in case it does make people ask those questions. And I think they're good questions to ask, even if you don't end up with the same answer that I did.
They are. And I will say this briefly, and I definitely want to come back to this. I'm going to circle back to this, but in Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, she goes into racism a lot in one particular chapter, and there's one point where she's talking about the people who don't think they're racist, but really are racist because they have no idea like what's going on. In a way, I feel like, in so many words, like what you're saying, the reason why I'm getting defensive is this me being racist? And I don't think that I am. And not, I'm using like her language there and saying racist because that's what she was talking about. But it's like that, like all of a sudden and then that elicits shame and embarrassment. And so I'm like, okay, I need to go sit with this and figure out what is it that you're challenging. So I want to come back to this, but I really need to actually sit in some quiet time with it. And if that's the case, then I mean, like this is you're doing exactly what I think you're standing up for, which is opening my eyes. So,
well, I do want to honor that you want to come back to it and talk more about gratitude. But if anybody else is now feeling the same things that you're feeling right now, mm-hmm. I do want to give one little thing. It's that when when I became aware of a lot of my implicit biases and started investigating what they were, I went to the people who those biases are discriminatory against. And I just said, hey, what about this? What about this? Is this offensive? Why? Is this offensive? Why? What if this happens? What if I do this? Is this something that damages or hurts you in some way? This year it was every single black person I knew. When I there was a time that I went to every single person in the LGBTQ community I went to and that I knew, and I was like, hey, what about this? I just went and asked, and there was never a clear yes or no. I wanted a checklist, right? These things are good. These things are bad. Don't say these. Say these things instead. And they never gave me any of that. What they gave me unanimously across the board was it all comes down to your intent. What are you meaning to do? What are you meaning to say? And are you aware of the implications and effects this has on other people whose experience you do not share and cannot understand? That was the question. And so what I would say to somebody who's made defensive by some schmuck like me who sits on a high horse and says, I'm being aware of the indigenous people and this is changing the way I do Thanksgiving, whatever. If you get defensive about that, that's fine. But if you start to judge yourself or shame yourself, investigate your intentions. And if those are pure, then I don't think there's room for you to have shame. I don't think there's room for you to judge yourself. I don't think there's room for you to tell yourself that you've been doing it wrong this whole time, or that there's a problem with you because you're not doing it a certain way. Because your intentions are good. Now, if you do the digging and you're like, oh yeah, I really just don't like those people, well, then that's something else. But I can tell you about that. From what I know about you, your intentions are phenomenal. Your intentions are the purest out of anybody I know. And the only reason that I can see someone with your intentions doing anything that would harm anybody is simply from just not knowing, not realizing, not having it not be on your radar. And that's what I'm hearing you say, is that there are things that are not on your radar because they haven't been put there. Or right, because maybe you have a kid and a wife and a life, and sometimes it's difficult to juggle doing that work. And I'm not here to tell anybody, well, you should do it anyway. Figure it out. Like, that's not, I don't want that to be what it sounds like it's coming from me, And so start with your intentions. And once you're solid in the fact that they're good, just give yourself compassion. I don't mean to make anybody feel attacked. I don't mean to attack anybody. And oh, shit. No, that's later. I just got a tap on the shoulder to say something, but I don't think that's for right now. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Like, just check your intentions. Start there. It gives you a whole lot of room to not pile on judgment and shame.
Okay. And on that note,
so,
what are you grateful for?
Other than you being a safe person in spite of me triggering the shit out of you in front of the world.
That wasn't your intention either, though.
No,
your intention
it wasn't.
Was not to trigger me. It wasn't.
Yes, I'm dealing with like some oh shit, should I have done this? Do we need to stop it and re-record and do the happy one that everybody wants to hear? Blah 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 blah. And that's kind of like happening in the background, and I'm fighting it, but it's there. I am going to say that one thing I've been really grateful for lately is our tribe. And I know this is going to sound like I just bring it up and pitch it every single time, and that's not what it is. Like, I'm actually kind of opposed to like an explosive growth in our tribe, because the bigger it gets,
we've talked about
there's
that.
There's some people who like how safe it is because we all know each other. We know each other really well. We haven't had a lot of growth lately, so it's all kind of the same people, and we're getting used to that. And there's some cool stuff that can come out of that. So I'm not trying to grow the tribe, and we're not really making anything off the money. Really, it's like it's not. Neither one of us has to quit our day job. But I am thankful for our tribe, because I am talking to at least one tribe member over text or Facebook Messenger or Voxer or Polo or something almost every day. And we're building into them. They're building into us. I've got that little garden. Like, I had a conversation this morning, and I may have talked about this, but not so specifically, but I have a garden where I have a plant for every single member of our tribe. And I'm kind of following divine guidance to figure out which ones they are and all that stuff. And then what I'll do is I'll notice something about the plant, and then I'll take a picture or a video and I'll send it to them and say, here's what's going on with the plant. And 100% of the time, it mirrors perfectly something that's going on in their life with creepy timing.
Yep.
Right? And so, like, one of our tribe members was a sunflower, and the sunflower just is really small and really like wilty, and it's probably gonna die before it blooms. Like it's just not in a good spot. But around that flower, I noticed some ground cover, some little tiny like clover looking things and some grass things. And normally I just pull those because I want them to. I don't want them to overgrow the whole area and everything. But around this one plant, I just kind of got this guidance like, hey, let's see what happens. Just see what happens with all that stuff if you just let it be what it is. And so I go out there, and the ground cover is so lush. It has covered the name tag that I put by the thing to tell me what flower that is. It's almost as tall as the flower itself, and it's covering all these other plants. And the flower, I think it's actually strangling this one flower because it started to die faster as the ground cover has started to envelop the whole area. But weirdly, the other plants have started to really sprout and grow and thrive with this ground cover. And I haven't really looked at what's going on there. It could still be a coincidence. But I texted this tribe member, and I was like, well, this thing that I thought was you is dying or dead. But all of this other ground cover, what if that's the you plant? What if you are the ground cover? And I just like posed it as a what if. Thank you, Marie. That's me tipping my hat. And they were like, oh, that's really interesting. And there is like very real death and rebirth situation in that person's life, and a really kind of like a shift in focus and what am I really? And so we were able to have that really awesome conversation. And my life, my day-to-day, my week is full of those conversations with our tribe members, where I see some real investigation, some real growth, some real transformation, some real thinking about things that they had never thought of before. And they're doing the same thing with me. It is so fucking cool. It's so cool. And I've had several points this past week where I'll be out there in my garden or I'll be talking to one of them. And I'm just like, man, I am so grateful for these people. It's really impossible not to be.
That's so true.
That's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the specific people that constitute the thing that I call our tribe.
It's a very beautiful dynamic that we've created. I like it. I'm going to ditto that. Although I don't plant plants for them, but you do have a plant for me, and it, eerily lines up with what happens to the plant is what is happening in my world.
Yes, I have an update on that I'll tell you offline, but it's really, I noticed it this morning, and I was like, oh, of course this happened to the plant.
What am I doing?
No,
this is fun.
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, what am I grateful for? Where do I start? Oh, goodness. I think I am just, no, I said that last time, but I'm still...
Your babysitter.
Who now listens. Hi, Elizabeth. Oh, goodness. I get to see her over Thanksgiving break, and I'm so excited.
Does Patrick know? Is he excited?
Yes, he does. He does know. Well, she's like home from school. They're doing that whole thing where they're closed. Like they're coming home at Thanksgiving and they don't go back until January to try to do all that. So she is going to be in the hood. So we'll see her out and about. I think I'm really grateful for my best friend, Becky, because, it's really hard it's hard for me. Let me back up and say it's incredibly hard for me to be very open and honest about who I am. I don't always show that. It's just sort of been one of those things in my life where I have been kind of what the other person needs, but they haven't always had the capacity to give back what I need. Right. So I just sort of keep that closed center, heart center, keep myself shut. But my best friend, Becky, I met her almost 20 years ago when I was working out at Camp Grady Spruce. And I was from Nebraska and she's from Minnesota. And so we just kind of had that, whole Midwest thing in common. And we just hit it off. And over the years, she has seen every version of me possible. She's seen the good, bad, and she's especially seen the ugly. And she still shows up. She still loves me because, again, going back to talking about intentions, it's like she still knows who I am, even with the ugly. And anyway, it was her birthday this week, and she's really struggling this year. She's a teacher, and she's just really trying to juggle teaching online while at the same time teaching in real life kids in our classroom. And I don't know how she's doing any of it. And we're going on a hike this weekend, which I'm super excited about, to celebrate a birthday. And I'm just, super grateful that I have that person. She is one of those safe persons. Like there's only a handful of people that if you really wanted to know anything about me, you would need to go find those people. And they would not tell you still because they love me that much. But she is one
They're
of
the
them.
people whose job it is to erase your search history if you die unexpectedly.
Yeah, she's got the checklist. She knows without even asking. She would know exactly what to do.
Without even asking. That's
without even asking.
Louises.
She would know.
Everyone
She would know
needs a
what to
friend
do.
like that.
Yes, I mean she's one of those people that's become family at this point. Like we've crossed over being friends. I mean she is Aunt Becky to Patrick, and so she's just a good person, and I love her. So there you go.
I hope I get to meet her one day.
Yes.
That's what I do. I make friends with people, and then I put myself on a mission to meet all of their friends. I've done that ever since like I actually had a friend group. It'd be like, okay, so now who are all of your people? Because they're going to become my people too.
Watch out! Here comes Ryan. Well,
Here
you
he
met my
goes.
sister. Now you need to meet Becky. You meet my.
I have my little checklist of all my Abby people.
Lovely. Okay, so gratitude. Yeah, that's where we are. So I typically ask that question because one thing that I avoid at the Thanksgiving table, because I'm still going to pretend that we're there and having Thanksgiving, is I do like to ask. I want to know what people are grateful for because we don't stop and really focus on that very often. And then when you actually have to share it with somebody, it sort of puts you on the spot and then really makes you think about it. And then you want to know why. Because if I just said I'm thankful for Becky, you'd be like, okay, and why?
What's so special about Becky?
Yeah. And then it sort of opens up this really beautiful conversation about all the things you're thankful for. And then I like to go around and sort of interview people.
Oh, shit.
Because I do everything possible to avoid politics, which inevitably comes up at the dinner table at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I will try to lay the groundwork first and avoid it at all costs.
And of course, you're podcasting with someone who immediately made it political on the get-go.
The funny thing is I was going to open up with, okay, I don't know how I was going to say it, but in my mind, I'm like, I know Ryan has a problem with Thanksgiving. And that's how I said it. But, I mean, it's more than that. And so I was like, I know he's going to say something about this, but it's the Thanksgiving episode and
yes, it is.
It's gratitude month. And so I'm just throwing it out there. So I know we've already done this segment and I really wasn't planning to do this. I just wanted to change it up and do something fun. Because let's be honest, it's the Friday after Thanksgiving that this episode is going to air. And so I just wanted it to be like lighthearted. So,
sorry, everybody. I should put a precursor in the show notes. Do not listen to this if you are at all triggerable in your food drunken stupor.
Yes. So I just want to ask you some questions, and I'm going to answer the questions too. Like I said, I know we already did this, but it's just fun.
Go.
Is that good?
Yeah, do it.
All right. So I want to know, because these are some of the things that I don't know. So if you were at my table, I would ask you
You're going to have to ask my friend Becky.
She won't tell me.
Oh, because she loves me that much.
She's a steel trap. She will say that's not for me to share.
That Becky.
Yeah.
How did I what? Go.
How did you guys come up with the name Bricks for your son?
Bricks. Okay, so there are two Bruces in my life that have been very influential. One of them was Bruce Lee, who was very influential on my father, who was then influential on me. And also that he was just an impossible human. Still continues to this day to be influential on me. And the second one is Bruce Wayne. Very influential for a very different reason. But I didn't want to name him Bruce. I just couldn't see my little kid being a little Bruce. And so my wife did some homework, and there's like a Bruce alternative in the UK. It's spelled Brix. I think it's pronounced Brie, like the cheese.
What?
Yeah. And I don't. And when I say the UK, I mean they speak several languages. I don't know what language it comes to. She just like did the homework and she was like, "What about bricks?" I'm like, "Sure, we're probably mispronouncing that." And then that just became the name anyway. So maybe I'm over here being all high and mighty about the natives, and I'm probably big some cultural appropriation into my own son's name. So how's that?
But
for
that's
some
what I'm talking
hypocrisy?
about. Like, how many things do we have to actually start being aware? We're not okay. No, we're coming back to that another day. All right. So, we're gonna keep the rest of this episode light.
Kris Kringle and Saint Nick are two different people. Has no one ever wondered how they both became Santa Claus? Sometimes it's just about curiosity. What the fuck? How many people are rolled into that big giant fat roll of a human? Anyway, so yeah, Bricks. That's how we came up with the name Bricks. We stole it from all of Europe.
Okay. See, I never knew that. I love it.
But
that even has more meaning.
Doesn't he just look like a little Bricks?
Oh my gosh, he does. And that's the thing. It fits him so
it's
perfectly.
It's the name of a kid who can take a fall and throw a punch. And he is 100%. You saw on the call Tuesday, he dragged me across the floor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where that strength came from. And then he's like, ha ha ha, I would do it again. Oh my God. He is such a little Bricks. He's a ton of bricks.
Now, did you guys have this name before he was born?
Yes, we deliberated heavily during the gestation period.
Okay.
And his middle name is Rodney because that's my dad's name. And I really didn't like Bricks Rodney because it didn't really roll off the tongue. The X and the R, the XR transition, like sonically does not agree with my auditory aesthetic sensibilities. But, you say anything enough times and it starts to sound like a thing. So Bricks,
like you
Bricks
really
Rodney.
have to enunciate like Bricks.
Bricks Rodney. Bricks Rodney. And it's so funny because then when we get onto him using his middle name, it's like I'm getting onto my dad. So there's this weird inverse power hierarchy in my brain. I'm like, oh no, okay, do what you want. What do you want? You want me to clean my room? What's going on? Yeah. And so it's a fun little reminder to stay humble.
But so you were talking about how he looks like a Bricks, and he does. He truly does. And the reason why I asked if you had the name before is because we picked out the name as well before Patrick was born. And then, there's some things that people say to people that are about to have kids that they should just never say, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But they say it anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. So somebody said, they're probably not even going to match that name. Like you shouldn't go and put that name on everything, which we were getting gifts that had embroidered names and all that because we'd already picked out the name and we knew the sex of the child. Name. So, and I thought, I had this freak out moment. Like, what if our kid comes out and he doesn't look like a Patrick? I'm like, oh my gosh,
what does that even mean?
Are we going to have to change his name? And I remember, I'm not kidding you. I'm laying there. And this woman really got in my head about this. And I'm laying there on the delivery table and I haven't cut the umbilical cord yet. I'm just letting him do his thing and he's laying on my chest. And I seriously had the thought, oh, thank God he looks like a Patrick. Like, that's what I was thinking. And he does.
Oh, he looks healthy. Oh, this looks like me.
Yeah,
no,
right?
this satisfies the fear that was placed in me by another person who has nothing to do with either of us. Thank God. Yes. Now I don't have to do the work of just respectfully not giving a shit all on my own.
Yeah, exactly.
I
was all up in her business. Let's call it pregnancy hormones.
He came through for you.
But he did.
In a real way.
Yeah, he did.
Little in utero kid who wanted to be like a George was like, oh fuck, now I gotta look like a Patrick. Is there still time to rearrange my face? What does a Patrick look like? So much stress on that little kid.
See, we were gonna name him Jesse. His name was gonna be that was one of the names, Jesse, because it's he has two family names, and so he's Patrick James, and Patrick is Christy's dad's name. And James is my brother's middle name. It's also a great grandfather. I have James on like both sides of my family, and so that just rolls. Speaking of like rolling nice together, Patrick James.
That is such a distinguished name.
Yeah, but see, so Jesse was kind of also out there. The funny thing is, I look at him now, I can't see Jesse.
I'm trying to try it on.
I just try it on, I can try
Patrick.
other names. He looks like a Sam. Mm-hmm. He looks like maybe a John.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look like a Jesse.
No, he doesn't.
So it's in a weird way. Like, what if the universe...
what's weird is, what if you had stuck with Jesse and then he came out with a different
face?
face?
That's what I'm saying! With a different face! We'll never know. But what if we would have come out with the same face and I would have been like, shit, this isn't a Jesse?
Well, that happened to my sister. My parents had a different name for my sister.
Okay.
Actually,
like
it happened...
gender or like completely still a girl's name? Just okay.
They thought that she was a boy from the heartbeat and the sonograms, and so they had a boy name. And then when they figured out later that it was a girl, the name can go either way. It's an androgynous name. You just change the spelling, and so it still worked. But then when she came out, my mom was like, "That is not your name. You don't look like that name. Here is your name." And then on the fly, they didn't have like a backup. Like, what am I going to name you if you don't look like this name? She just was like, "Oh, this is your name. Pleasure to meet you for the first time. I was mistaken. You look like a this and you're a that." And I mean, like, and that's purely what it was. She saw her face and was like, "Oh, no. This is what your name was always going to be." And just changed it on the fly and immediately let go of the other name.
I feel like that is spiritual guidance right there. I do. Like, I don't know. Do we really name them? Or do they in some way already embody that name when they've chosen to come into this lifetime and have us as parents?
Names definitely have meanings.
Yeah, they do. They really do. And that's why when you say he's a Bricks and then where it comes from, it all makes sense now.
Well, then I have one of my piano teachers growing up, his parents made up his name because they could not agree on... Like, both of them had a name that they wanted, and they were both refusing to budge. But then the time came that they needed to actually have something to call the kid. So they combined the names, and they made it up. And that was his name.
What is his name?
It's Darvin.
Darvin.
Yeah.
Interesting. What is that?
It was... I can only assume it's like a David and Marvin. I don't. He told me at one point, but it was in the middle of me being distracted from a piano piece I didn't want to play. But But then you think about this guy, and he will never be anything other than a Darwin. No, Darvin.
Darvin.
A Darvin.
No, not Darwin. Darvin.
He will, yeah. And then he went and looked it up, and there are a few other Darvins out there.
Interesting. See, I don't know. That's crazy. Because you're right. Like, he is. You probably can look at him and like can't see anything else. Huh.
Right.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Next. All right. This will go along with, the beginning of our conversation. What's your favorite way to give back and help others?
Oh, shit.
Give back and help others. Oh, sorry. Oh, Alex.
Continue. Please continue to. Oh, 2020
no,
sucks.
Seriously.
They need Will Ferrell to host that show, but do an Alex Trebek impression like he did on Celebrity Jeopardy and Saturday Night Live.
That would be awesome.
That would be just the best. Oh, what's my favorite way to give back and help others? I mean, my mind is going so many different places. Because when you talk about give back, you're like, to me, those words live in a place in my brain that also houses things like charity and donations and food runs.
And that, sure. And if you want to answer that way, go for it.
And the way I help others is in a different house, a different room in the house. Because I would say the way I help others is through the energy healing, through the podcast, through our tribe, things that, I monetarily benefit from. So it's not like charity work, But the way that I help people the most are through those venues. I will say though, I don't remember what the movie was called. I think it's just called Robots. It had Robin Williams. It was an animated DreamWorks movie, and it was all about this robot that wanted to be an inventor, which is kind of ironic if you think about it. But the whole premise of why people become inventors is you see a need and you fill a need. Mm-hmm. And I think adopting a posture in general of see a need, fill a need is my favorite, even though it has different ways that it comes out. Like driving around Dallas, you're going to find people on the corner with a cardboard sign. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of different people have a lot of different thoughts on giving them money or giving them anything. And I realized that I do feel a conscience ping when I don't give them anything. But then when I do, I feel a different kind of ping to my conscience. Like it's a lose-lose. They're putting me in a weird spot just by existing, right? Yep, so let's just go and tackle the systemic thing that produced. Anyway, and so, but in the moment, you're right there. In the moment, you're right there. You're at the stoplight, and the person's looking you in the eye. Mm-hmm. And so I was working at a place that had a bunch of speakers come through. One of those speakers was an author. One of those authors had a book, and they were giving out those books in these nice wooden or cardboard book boxes. I didn't know that book boxes were a thing, but they had them. And then when the event happened, we had a whole bunch of book boxes left over. So I just, asked all the people I needed to ask and took them home. And then I filled those with goods that don't need to be refrigerated, like food. I filled them with food.
Yeah.
Packaged food.
Nice.
Not necessarily the most healthy packaged food. Oh, and that was also like a little confirmation from the universe, because I was like, where am I going to get food? I mean, I could go buy food, but that's a lot of food. It was a lot of boxes. And so then I may be getting someone in trouble. I don't care. But the vending machine people at the place that I worked would come and they would restock the vending machines. And one of the things they had to do was take out all the things that were past the expiration date. And so he was taking out things that were like 1 day past the expiration date. We're talking about packaged goods that could last forever.
That are so processed that,
Right. And the expiration date is decided by legal teams specifically to avoid litigation in the case of a food-related illness. So it's like way past the actual time that it's not, and they're supposed to take all that back and not let anybody have it. But this one particular person, I was like, hey, what are you going to do with all this baskets of stuff? He was like, I don't know, you want it? So I was like, yes! And so I went to like every little break station on every floor of our building with this crate of just like a pull cart of all these baskets of all the packaged food. Yeah. Just for free. I wasn't supposed to have it. We were breaking rules, but the guy didn't care. I didn't care. I took it and I loaded up those boxes full of and so I put all those in my car. And so then anytime I would see somebody on the side of the road, I just give them a box with food. Mm-hmm. And then of course there was like this vision of like I mean ultimately what I would love to do is create like a whole like care package that has like a mobile phone that has like a card with a certain number of minutes on it and a little thing that says like, here's the number for your closest shelter. Here's the number for a suicide helpline. Here's all the places you can call with like the 10 minutes that are loaded onto this phone. Here's, I would like to have like a little kit. And, but I never got that far, but I just had all these food boxes. And then when I ran out, I just never re-upped. Like I was going to turn it into a whole thing and then I didn't because I went and followed some other crazy whim. But it's stuff like that. It's like find a need, figure out what you can do that's like the most reasonable and helpful, and then just do it. And if you don't know how or where, then ask the universe. And if it's something you're supposed to do, then it will be provided. Yeah. And I think living with it with a posture of see a need, fill a need. What can I do? Kind of helps me to do little things like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. When I think about this, I think it kind of like a major turning point for me when things could have gone either direction was when like my college years. So that like 18 to 21 time period, a lot of significant things happened for me. And if they didn't, I'm not really sure I'd be in the place that I am. And a lot of gifts were bestowed upon me in order to make some of this happen. Like I ran track. I was a hurdler. I got a full scholarship at one college. I got to run track. I got like 75% scholarship at another college, and I didn't take any of them. I ended up going to a liberal arts college and paid for it myself and worked 3 jobs. So that meant that I had to apply for a lot of scholarships. in which I got. And that's like the one thing that sort of really helped me pay for school and get through school. And then like I really was working 3 jobs to try to make this work. And one of them happened to be during the day. I worked in the alumni office, and it was basically data entry. Like they would get all, like I would update, if there was a change of address for an alumni, then I would go in our system and I would update it. It was incredibly boring work, but I could basically come in anytime I didn't have class. Go get Patrick. I got to shut that off on Thursdays. Dang it. I would, like it didn't matter. Like if I had 30 minutes in between classes, I could go and work for 30 minutes. And so, but what I loved about it is I had 2 ladies that worked in there, Sherry and Lois, who I adored, and they adored me. And anytime it was finals, they'd be like, just go ahead and study. Just clock your hours and go ahead and study. Or like I know you were working at the bar, which I did. I worked at a bar until like 2:00 in the morning, and then I would get up at 5 because I was also a personal trainer at the YMCA. So I would work the bar, and then I would go train people at the Y. And so there were so many times where I'm in this dark office doing data entry, and I would fall asleep, and they would let me sleep.
That is incredible.
So I have a lot of gratitude for, anytime I go back to Lincoln, they both still work at Wesleyan, and I adore them. So I go and visit them. But like those kinds of things changed my life. Like they showed me that people really care. And like in a way, it was like their way of cheering me on and helping me get through this because they saw my struggle. And so my favorite way to give back is to that age group. So I really love, working and figuring out any ways. Like, so of course I definitely give back to Wesleyan because I got a lot of scholarships, and I have the ability to give money back, and I can designate, that it go to scholarships.
Right.
I help in a variety of ways, that particular age group. And sometimes it's even as small as like there's a kid that works for us at Fireworks who just has this passion and drive for just really wanting to follow his dreams. And so I'm really focused on like, what do you need from me? What can I help you do? Or helping him identify something that he doesn't see. So that's one of my favorite ways. It's just because if I didn't have those people in my life, I don't know that I would be where I am sometimes. So that's one way, like as far as charities or ways to give back. But then also my favorite way to help people is by helping them figure out how to do it themselves.
Yes. You're feeding people fish and teaching them how to fish. You can do both.
Right, because I feel like if I teach you how to fish, then you're going to eat. You're going to be able to eat.
And it's a whole lot easier to learn how to fish when you're not starving. So you do both.
Yeah, yes. And so that's what I do as a coach. Like people come to me like, help, I'm desperate. And really all I do is teach them how to fish, and they have no idea that that's what I'm doing. And, I see it, and I'm kind of like smiling like, yeah, okay, you got this. Here you go. Now I won't ever see you again.
Which is the point.
Yeah, which is the point. So I would say those are my 2.
You just kind of rocked my world a little bit. The phrase "give back." You give back to people who have given to you, which is what makes giving back, not just giving. Mm-hmm. Right? Charitable giving. You go to charitynavigator.com or something like that. Find someone who will take your money and give it. That's people who do that, and it's fine. But the idea of giving back, I never actually thought about it in terms of the back part. Give back. So, like, now I'm thinking, if I did decide that I wanted to give back, I would have to go first take inventory of who has given to me. And start there. That is, talk about, like, putting your blinders on. That totally narrows, because I get analysis paralysis, too. Like, when I do get to this time of year, I get all, like, I think a lot of people just get really kind of, like, just generally charitable. It's all in the media. It's in the commercials. It's all the Coke commercials. Right. And so the question's like, well, what do I do with all the stuff I've had all year and never felt the need to give to somebody else? And then I am so preachy today. I'm just going to call myself out for just being so preachy. I feel so high horsey right now. It is what it is. This is all happening the way it was supposed to happen. But,
yes.
But, like, when you do get charitable, it's hard to kind of figure out what to do with it or where to go. And so that could be a really good, useful tool for figuring out what to do, is to find people who have given to you and then literally give back.
That's one reason I still give to the YMCA, because I worked there. How many years did I work for the Y? I was a director. I mean, years. And they have a campaign fund every year because they do give scholarships for families that can't afford childcare or want to have extracurricular activities for their kids and can't afford it. Because you know the kids, because they were probably some of your kids, but I know their parents who came to me in tears because pineapple has changed their kid's life, and they wouldn't have been able to do that, or their kid would not have had that experience if we didn't give them a scholarship. And there are some very specific children that I have cried tears over that have come to the YMCA, and I know that we changed their path. I know we did. And so I want to make sure that that still happens. So I love that you say that, because yes, I mean, just go back to, like, if you're looking for kind of where to put your dollars or your hours or whatever, seriously, go back to where something has impacted you. It's a good place to start. You're right.
Yeah. And if that's hard to do, what we should do is put links in the show notes to places that people can give that mean something to us.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the Y.
Yeah, like the Y. Like I also like donating to the outdoor education program, because there's so many kids. I have so many stories. Oh my gosh. I remember the kids from Dallas that would come out to Camp Grady Spruce, and they would get off the bus and they would see a jackrabbit with these gigantic ears, and their eyes would just pop out of their head. Like, or they'd see deer down by the water in the morning, or, all of a sudden they realize how they fit into our environment that goes well beyond the concrete. And you're just like, had they not spent this week in 6th grade here, would they ever know that they're a part of this whole ecosystem, right? And how important it is to take care of it. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but
well, that's huge.
There you go. Who was your favorite teacher and why?
Okay, well, being that I was homeschooled.
That is a good point. I didn't even think about that when I asked that question.
I
but
had
keep in mind, a teacher
teachers.
Doesn't have to be, like, I'm not talking about a school classroom teacher. Just,
I mean, I was in a lot of classes. Like, when you're homeschooling your kid, you get to a certain age, like past grade school, where you can't just be their teacher of all the things, because most adults have forgotten most of that stuff. So there are homeschool classes, ironically, that you sign them up for, and then they go and they have a day in a week full of being taught by other people, and your homework is accountable to them, and your grades come from them, and all that stuff. So I did have a lot of teachers, and but you said was, so I'm assuming that the question is like childhood, upbringing, life, blah, 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 blah. Because I could also get philosophical and say, well, I think Brooks is my favorite teacher.
No, but you can answer that way. That's
okay.
Either, let's say either currently or in the past.
I'm going to say currently my favorite teacher is my son. That will probably be the answer for the rest of my life. School teacher, my favorite teacher was the teacher's assistant to my 1st grade teacher. 1st grade teacher was Mrs. Stoltz. The only interaction I remember having with her that wasn't me getting in trouble was me asking her if she was a grandmother. And I don't know why that didn't also get me in trouble. The TA was a lovely young lady named Miss Fuller. And when I got caught, this is in 1st grade, but when I got caught kissing one of the girls under the bleachers in the gym during skate day.
Okay.
Her name was Natalie Randall. This was Buckingham North Christian School. And when we got caught, Miss Stoltz and Miss Fuller were standing there with me, and they were telling me why you can't kiss girls under the bleachers in the gym on skate day. And my question was, well, who can I kiss? And they were like, well, you can kiss your mom. This was Miss Stoltz, the grandmother. She was like, you can kiss your mom, you can kiss your sister, you could kiss me, you could kiss Miss Fuller. And I was like, I can kiss Miss Fuller. And then, of course, everybody realized that she was also my first teacher crush. And then they're like, nope, you can't kiss Miss Fuller. Don't kiss me either. You can kiss your mom and your sister. And I remember as a little first grader being so confused, but like, what is it? Who can I kiss here? And yes, and so, of course, then my relationship with Miss Fuller became a lot more complex and complicated. She sat on the other side of the room, and nothing ever came of it. So, but deep down inside, she will always be my favorite teacher.
Okay. Awesome. All right, we're about to wrap up our Thanksgiving
hour. Who are your favorite
but
teachers?
I have to say, yes, I'm also my current favorite teacher is definitely my son as well. So I think he always will be. But I have many teachers kind of throughout the years. My very first teacher, Mrs. Simon, was one of my favorites. And it's so weird that later in life, she turned out to be one of my Grams' best friends.
What?
But she was my yeah. And it's like you think your teachers are sort of like out, like they have their own lives. You don't really know anything about them. And like when you see them in the grocery store, it really freaks you out. Like
it's out of context. Yeah.
Wait, why? What? You shop for groceries? You know, it's
You're
like
a
you have this
human?
whole freak out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always just had this vision of like Mrs. Simon in our kindergarten class, and we're doing finger painting and all this, and then you realize like she's over here drinking wine with your Grams, even though you're like 35 years old. You're like, what is wrong with this picture? You don't belong here. So, but no, she. I think she's one of those teachers. It took me a long time to figure out why I liked her so much, but I think she's one of those teachers that saw the potential in me that I didn't see in myself. Like she saw that I had a lack of confidence, and she found these ways to like foster my confidence. And it's like instead of waiting for her to tell me what to do, she'd just say things like, I don't know, Abby, what do you think we should do? You know, it's like she just had this gentle way of just sort of pushing me into myself, and I just love her. Then there's Mrs. Ald in 6th grade, who never made me feel different than any other kid, and I had a lot of reasons at that time to be very different, and all the quote unquote bullies made that very known on a regular basis, and she never made me feel that way. It was just another kid in her class that she saw going somewhere. But what really strikes me about Mrs. Ald is that my sister, who's 5 years younger than me, would come down after school every day, and we would have to walk home together and everything. And to this day, my sister still wishes like she could be me. I mean, my biggest fan is my sister. And so it used to drive me crazy as a kid. Like, oh, this little kid, like, get off of me. Like, go away. You're just this little kid. And Mrs. Ald just always pointed out how kind I was to my sister, and what an important relationship that was, and how I have the ability to teach her and show her like all the ways to be good and to, you know, be kind to people. And it was like the first time I ever thought about that. Like, oh my gosh, she's going to do what I do. So if I screw up, she's going to screw up. And I didn't like that. All of a sudden, I like took on this new responsibility in a very good way of like being this role model for my sister. And that was all kind of fostered by Mrs. Ald. And then I had a teacher in college, my freshman year. The class was literature and maturation.
Where you just read Pride and Prejudice over and over.
Pretty
and
much.
over.
That's what it felt like. Yeah. But it was the first class I remember. Like it's like I had to think for myself, right? Like in high school, it's you memorize this, you give them what they want to hear, you do it, you pass. Great. I do very well at that. And then all of a sudden he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, what do you want me to think?
What is the right answer to this question?
And so I remember writing these papers on these books that we read, and literally trying to write what I thought he wanted me to write. And he called me on it. And he like pulled me into his office for this meeting and was just like, this is not what I want from you. Like, you are missing the point of this class. Like, I understand, like, this has been, so from that moment on, and that was my freshman year. And I'm so glad, because then it was like, it opened me up to, like, learning really is about what I'm learning. What am I getting out of it? How am I interpreting that information? How does that?
Yes. That is something that we are learning collectively as a generation right now. Mm-hmm. Like, just stop being what they want you to be. Like,
yes.
That is. I'm hearing that from so many different places, and it's being disseminated to such a broad audience, all of whom are eating it up. Because somehow we lost the plot at some point, and people just stopped teaching the masses to be what you are. Instead, you get good grades by trying to figure out what they want you to be, and then being really good at being it.
Yes.
And that's bullshit.
It is total bullshit. And to remind myself, I still have the very book that he called me out on. It's called Yellow Raft in Blue Water. And I read it occasionally just to kind of go back to that space of like,
relive the,
be your own measuring stick. Be your own measuring stick. So anyway.
Speaking of being your own measuring stick, we talked about that too. And I just feel like if anybody like me out there needs loops to be closed, my nipples are actually only 8.5 inches apart. If you go from center to center.
I about spit my water out. Oh my God.
I really only said that because you were drinking.
Yeah. So the tattoo of the measuring stick between your nipples is not going to work.
Unless it's just 8.5 inches.
It will not be to scale.
My measuring stick is an 8.5 inch foot.
Instead
of
of 12.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good place to end.
Thank you. It is. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Until next time, thank you for loving me. Thank you for being there.
Bye. We are grateful for you. Thank you for listening. And if you like what we're doing and you want more, then you can join our tribe to interact with other like-minded individuals. You can go through our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/True North Podcast 11.
Is it Podcast 11 or is it True North 11?
Oh, shit.
It's in our show notes. If you want more than that... You want some more hands-on healing stuff that we do. I do actual energy healing and body work, and Abby does life coaching and workshops. And you can find the URLs in our show notes when we figure out what they are.
And we are always trying to increase our reach and bring more people to find their true north. So we would really appreciate it if you could leave a review and rate it in whatever podcast platform you use.
Done. That's perfect.
What about the gratitude?
Oh, this one. Hang on. And one last thing. What are you grateful for? There. I said it. I said the thing.